Wouldn't it be better if you put her someplace?
You mean an institution? A madhouse?
You just found the marble in the oatmeal. You're a lucky, lucky, lucky little boy. Do you know why? You get to drink from the fire hose! Okay, you ready? Open wide! I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Hey, you want to see treasure?
You really are crazy.
I don't get it, Doc. I mean, how can all this be happening? It's like we're in hell or something.
No, it's Hill Valley, although I can't imagine hell being much worse.
Now you want to get nuts? Shut up, you freak! Come on! I say shut up! It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
Hello and welcome to Movie Madhouse, a podcast about films lost to the annals of time. I'm Travis Fishburne.
And I'm Alex Brunel.
And this week, we'll be covering a film not very lost at all.
Nope.
In fact, it still has things from the 90s that are still functioning.
Yeah, an incredibly well-preserved film, actually.
Yes. Space Jam.
Space Jam!
The 1996 experiment Space Jam.
That is a really good way of framing this movie as an experiment. Because it is very hard to talk about it as if it were a movie where you're expecting certain movie things from it. It's a weird little bubble thing. You have to evaluate it by itself.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this will be interesting to talk about. I hadn't seen it in a few years, and not with a critical eye for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it was very interesting watching it as an adult. It's been at least 20 years since I've seen this.
Oh wow, I've seen it since I've lived in Los Angeles. There was an ex of mine had us watch it, and that was fun at the time. But I didn't concentrate on like anything about the movie. I didn't like try to analyze it at all. And then when I try to analyze it now, I wound up mostly being baffled, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I do want to, before we get into stuff, and we have some news bits to cover too, but before we get into that, I do want to say, when I will be talking about Space Jam, a lot of it will sound like I'm kind of crapping on the movie and kind of slacking it off, and I'm not. It's just stuff that is the way it is about the movie, and I think the movie is very fun. And for what it is, if that's the experience you want, this movie delivers it. But there are a lot of things that can be said about how weird it kind of is ultimately if you try to take it out of its own bubble.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that being said, what else we got to talk about this week, Travis?
So leading off the news, last week it was announced that there is going to be a Lego Star Wars holiday special to celebrate Life Day.
Yep. And
it will be airing on Disney Plus on November 17th, actual Life Day.
Right. For uber Star Wars nerds, that pinged immediately for me, November 17th, because I know that is the day that the original Star Wars holiday special aired, November 17th, 1978. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't know how to feel about this one.
Yeah, I don't know either, because I want to be excited for it, but as I told you, it's very interesting that Jon Favreau is not involved, because for the past 2 years, even before The Mandalorian aired, he was talking about how he would actually legitimately love to like bring back a holiday special.
Right.
And he integrated so many things from the holiday special into The Mandalorian. And in one of the episodes of The Gallery, he's showing off the gun that the Mandalorian uses. It's based off of Boba Fett's animated rifle.
Yeah.
He's showing it off to George Lucas, and he's like, this is from the holiday special.
Yeah.
And George is like, how dare you?
Yeah. And I guess some of the cast will be in this new holiday special.
Yeah.
I do think it's weird that Favreau isn't involved. I mean, the fact that it's a Lego thing gives them more license to not have to take the thing so seriously, which is, I'm sure, why that choice was made. But it feels... the fact that Favreau isn't involved, and the fact that it is airing on the same date as the holiday special, it's airing on an anniversary, 42? 42.
42.
And,
It's a significant number.
yeah, it's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And because it's still about Life Day, it's still about Chewbacca and Life Day, these are like very specific deep cut references for Star Wars nerds. Yet it has this, so far at least, it has this very Disneyfied air about it. You know what I mean? Like, and by that, I guess I think a thing I could say to put that in a little more context, the way I think of it is, Anthony Daniels in almost every official capacity has always portrayed C-3PO.
Yeah.
Audio dramas.
Well, he doesn't like to let other people play it at all.
He really doesn't. He owns that character, and he makes sure that he is there to be that voice. Very soon after Disney bought Star Wars, I can't remember what show it was. I don't remember if it was a kids show or like a morning show or something, but there was a TV appearance that featured Darth Vader, R2, and 3PO. And 3PO was not played by Anthony Daniels. And I was just like, okay, so like right out of the gate, we have like the old guard being cast aside in favor of like doing this cash grab kind of thing. And I really don't want this holiday special to feel like Anthony Daniels not playing C-3PO, I guess is what I'm saying. That's my concern.
Probably the guy playing 3PO you're talking about is Chris Bartlett, who...
Enlighten me about Chris Bartlett.
He is actually a member of the 501st.
Okay.
And he was like one of the first guys to build a 3PO costume.
Okay.
And so he's like, comes from a fan background. And then he's just like eventually kind of like got in and started working more and kind of like studied under Anthony Daniels a little bit. To the point where now he's being used. He's in several episodes of The Mandalorian. He played Zero the Bounty Hunter.
Oh.
In episode 6.
Okay.
So he's he's a good guy from everything I've heard about him. But yeah, like you said, like the fact that 3PO, that Anthony Daniels is not being used as much. I don't know if maybe after Rise of Skywalker, he's kind of taking a step back from the character to a degree.
Yeah, that might be true too. I mean, he's put in his time. You know, like I can't slight him for wanting to take a back seat, but just it was that you know, that first like hint of worry that Disney is just gonna just monetize the living hell out of Star Wars. And yeah. But you know, as with all things Star Wars, I force myself to remain cautiously optimistic, because it works out one way or the other. I don't know.
Also, it's Chewbacca celebrating Life Day, but this looks to take place in the sequel era.
Yeah, and
so
like,
is he gonna be like, why am I celebrating this? All my friends are dead.
Right.
It's not Life Day anymore.
Do we get to see Mala and Lumpy again? Why is Poe wearing an ugly Christmas sweater? That seems to be like a specific weird thing about just this one image we have. Will they sing R2-D2 We Wish You a Merry Christmas? These are the questions.
That would be very awesome.
That would legitimize it to me. I'd be like, I don't care what you do. If you put R2-D2 We Wish You a Merry Christmas in your special, great.
With special appearance by Bon Jovi.
That would actually be the ultimate thing. That would be great. We could do a podcast where we review Christmas in the Stars.
I would love that.
I would actually really like that too. Everybody come back to this space come the holiday season, and Travis and I will be discussing the Star Wars Christmas album, Christmas in the Stars.
Which I think is legitimately good. I listen to every year.
I listen to it every year too, but I would hesitate to call it legitimately good.
That's
fair. I'm not arguing. I just I do listen to it every year. I own a very beat up copy on vinyl. that I break out in the holiday season that I really enjoy listening to.
So that's
that.
the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah.
Coming back. And then, unfortunately, we need to get into some real serious news.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to talk about Courtney Cox Arquette's haircut in Scream 3.
Yes.
That David Arquette recently came out and he took full responsibility for.
Now, fill me in on that. I skipped that article. I skipped that Slash Film article because I'm like, okay, David Arquette has been talking nonstop for the last 3 weeks and I don't care anymore. But tell me how he's taken responsibility for the 2 centimeters of frilly bangs that Courtney Cox has here.
In this quote, because everybody is coming back on board for the 5th movie.
Right, which they keep threatening to make and seems closer to reality than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Including him. And so in a recent interview regarding it, he says, "The bangs were my fault. I have to admit, I was like, oh, you should do a Betty Page thing, just a little. And that was my fault. Totally, I'll take full responsibility. I mean, they're, a professional hairdresser's fault, of course. And they didn't really do Betty Page kind of really blunt bangs. That's what the idea was.
Yeah.
They tried to mess with them, and you can't. You have to go fully in. You can't go halfway out, those kind of things.
Yeah, it is a weird haircut. I can't say it ever particularly bothered me before, but now I can say it will be the only thing I watch when I watch Scream 3.
Oh my gosh. I think I've only seen the movie once, but that was the big takeaway from the movie. I went into the movie being like, oh, I can't wait to see Jay and Silent Bob. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the entire thing, I'm like, what's up with her hair?
You know what, dude? My first sitcom that I glommed onto as a young person was Friends. My first modern sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was right when it was coming into syndication and it was bigger than ever on NBC. So I'd watch Friends late grade school and into high school and stuff. And I've rewatched the show once or maybe twice since, but when I do, I skip the first season because I can't deal with looking at their hair. Any one of them.
I can understand that.
It's only their hair. I just can't deal with looking at them in 1994.
When I would watch Friends a lot, I would always prefer it when they get more modern. And I'm like, I want to see what they look like today. I don't like these this young, weird-haired early versions of the character.
Yeah, there's sometimes it's fun to revisit a thing that's so of the moment, that it can be a time capsule in that way, much like Space Jam actually is. But the first season of Friends is not one of those things. It's what's the worst people can look in 1994, and then that's Friends, and then we can just put that away and move on. But you have access. You have HBO Max.
Yeah.
You can watch Friends whenever you want.
Now.
Yeah. So that's all our pre-Space Jam info, right?
Yes. That's all the stuff leading up to Space Jam.
So
it's the most pertinent news articles.
Star Wars Holiday Special and Courtney Cox's hair in what the heck year was Scream 3? 2001?
2000.
2000. Yeah, that's right. Because it was before Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Scream 2000.
Right. So let's get into Space Jam. And if you need a synopsis for this movie somehow, literally the poster tells you everything you need to know, which is it is a movie starring Michael Jordan and cartoons. Or Looney Tunes specifically. That's all you need to know. But if we're going to get more specific, in a desperate attempt to win a basketball match and earn their freedom from alien captors, the Looney Tunes seek the aid of retired basketball champion Michael Jordan. And that is the quote-unquote plot of Space Jam.
There's no B plot.
There is no B plot.
Actually, there is kind of a B plot.
A little bit. It's just Wayne Knight. That's it. Wayne Knight is...
I was thinking of the 5 basketball players that are struggling with identity crisis.
And those scenes are funny.
Yeah.
So what was your... So you said you hadn't seen the movie in 20 years. How was your... How did you take it in the year of 2020?
Well, it was an interesting watch. The biggest thing is I just came off of watching the Last Dance, the 10-part docu-series on Michael Jordan and the Bulls.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person left who has not watched that. I need to. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's really good.
I've heard.
But so it gave me a lot of context surrounding the movie about his personal, like, things going on with the team and his life. And it just made me just really look at the film in a really weird, like, what? How did this get made? Because they don't talk about that in the documentary. They talk about his actual, like, basketball career, and Space Jam is a very little blip in there. So they don't talk about the origin of it or anything, because I'm very curious about it, because, like, it's so, it's half like autobiographical because it's taking place within this period of his life that is so fresh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they decide to make this? And why did they decide to make him? And why all these people playing themselves? And it's very strange to me, I think.
Yeah.
Like the whole conceptual thing of doing that.
Totally agree. I had a lot of thoughts. As we've said, there's like I said, there's no way to really talk about this like it's a normal movie, but I can't think of another movie where that features a person playing themselves. That's ostensibly about, they're playing themselves. It's about a real person that fictionalizes aspects of their life for the sake of the film. Meaning, like, so we have this flashback scene at the beginning of the film, not flashback, but this opening scene where Michael's very young at the beginning of the film playing basketball outside of his house, which is a complete fabrication. Like, I don't know, I mean, maybe you watched The Last Dance, maybe you can tell me if that was actually the kind of environment he grew up in, or if that kind of ramshack house with, like, the old cruddy basketball hoop was, like, part of his reality, or was that fictionalized?
It could have been.
Yeah, right?
That's not clear.
Right, and it's not, like, super significant. It's not like the movie is saying, this is how Michael Jordan grew up, and you must appreciate his roots. It's just this little, like, character context thing. But that's weird, but it gets weirder when he's an adult and we meet his family, his wife and his 3 kids, who all have who have the names of his real wife and his real 3 kids, and they're all played by actors.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing. Is I'm like, okay, everybody plays themselves in this movie except for Michael's family.
Right. And they're in it so little, I couldn't help but wonder, like, why not just cast his actual family? Like,
especially the kids.
Yeah, like, nobody else in the movie can act. No one's going to notice if, like, the kids can't act. Yeah.
It's so weird. It would be so weird to go and shoot a movie where I'm playing myself and I have to interact with, like, somebody playing my wife and 2 kids playing my kids.
Yeah, like, especially I would assume, like, at least at some points, probably his wife and kids were there. Maybe not on those days, but I have to imagine that his family was present for at least some of it. Other aspects I found interesting. Well, I do want to just say right now, there is not a single athlete in this movie, and while a lot of them are funny, like, I think the B plot with the 5 players who have their talent stolen, I think that's actually really funny because of how kind of inept they are, not only as they play like they're inept at basketball, but they're very inept actors, and it makes that whole thing funnier for that reason, I think. And I do think that the movie works for itself in spite of Michael Jordan's performance, because I do not think it's a good performance. I don't think it's very funny. It feels natural and it feels kind. Those are 2 things it does feel to me. But it doesn't feel like a real performance at all. It feels like Michael Jordan reading, like, a ad copy in a commercial or something. And
I think that's I found out is kind of the origin of this. It came from, like, him doing commercials and ads and then being like, well, let's just make a giant one of these.
And so, like, that aspect is very interesting because I can't think of another movie where the big draw of the movie actually really all he needs to do is be present and be not uncharming, and that is enough to work in the movie. And I think it does. And the other thing I thought was what was the other thing I thought? If you have a thought, maybe you can say it and I'll find mine.
Like we said, like strange, all these actors playing his family, and then with the exception of Wayne Knight, everybody else is just all playing themselves.
Right.
They actually have Bill Murray in there, and it makes sense. I mean, I guess, should I just talk about the cast, or do you have any notes about the crew and everything first?
I mean, I do, but I mean, I think the cast is more significant in this, so why don't we just talk about the cast, and then we can get into the background and personnel notes that I have.
Okay, cool. So, of course, we've got Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Who's playing himself. And interesting, like, he's the lead in a movie, and he doesn't act before or after this at all, really. He comes back and he plays himself in small cameos of certain other things. He made a cameo in Looney Tunes Back in Action, which makes sense. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. That's kind of great, but I'm still not going to watch that movie.
But yeah, he didn't really do anything else film-wise. And then we've also got Wayne.
Sorry to interrupt. I apologize, but I remember the other thing, and it's about Michael Jordan specifically in his role in this movie. Just so while we're talking about him in the cast, I found it very interesting how willing he was to allow the movie to make fun of him and that period of his career. Because his baseball career really is made into a joke in this movie.
It is.
And, you know, I haven't seen The Last Dance. I don't know a lot about Michael Jordan, but I would have to imagine that he took that very seriously when he did it.
Oh, yeah. Whatever he does, he goes like 110% into it.
Right, like he commits.
So they talk about that. Yeah, in the documentary, they're like, he went full into it. He had like the best work ethic of anybody we ever worked with. And he was actually doing pretty well, because in this movie and in real life, he's playing in the minors. And he only did it for like one full season, and then I don't even know if he got into the next one, because he started playing for the Bulls again in spring of 95.
Right.
But but they said like he was actually doing well, and he was well on his way to going into the MLB.
Interesting.
So it's weird that like this movie like makes that a joke, when I'm like, he wasn't doing that bad in real life.
And that he was willing to go along with that joke when it was such a recent part of his career. It wasn't like he had been a few years out and it was like, all right, I tried baseball, didn't really work, I can laugh about it now. It was like right on the heels of when it happened.
Yeah.
So I found that very interesting, and I think that to me spoke a lot to just his character as a person, that he was just like, yeah, this is good, I'll do this. So yeah, that was my other thought I was struggling to remember before. So please, let's continue about the cast. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. And then we've got Wayne Knight, one of the only people playing a character in this movie, who's playing Stan Podolak. And we all know him from Jurassic Park and Seinfeld and Third Rock from the Sun, Officer Dawn.
Yes. I always really enjoyed watching Wayne Knight. I think he's really funny. He's funny in this movie.
He is. Which that character, I found out, director wanted Michael J. Fox to play.
Yeah. I also read Chevy Chase potentially.
Yep, him too. But I'm like, that would have been weird.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine like trying to cast Michael J. Fox and Wayne Knight for the same role.
Yeah, I can't either. Warner Brothers was apparently why both of those ideas got shot down. Reitman and Joe Pytka, the director, both wanted Michael J. Fox, and Warner Brothers was like, no. Which I don't understand on a studio level, but, whatever.
And then we've got Larry Bird playing himself, and this is literally like his only acting credit as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be listing people all playing themselves.
Right.
Bill Murray playing himself, but he's actually, he's an actor, so he's
Right.
doing a good job at creating a character of himself as well.
Yeah, every moment he's in this movie is pure gold. I mean, we all know Larry isn't white. Larry is clear.
And then we've got Charles Barkley playing himself. And Charles Barkley, growing up, I knew he was a basketball player, but I really only knew him from this movie and from Jimmy Kimmel playing him on The Man Show.
Oh, boy.
Which everybody went after Jimmy Fallon. But I have not heard a lot of people going after Kimmel for doing that.
Well, maybe you should dig up some clips of The Man Show and send them to BuzzFeed and see what they do. See if we can get Jimmy Kimmel canceled. Yeah, let's not do that. It's probably not worth it. Let's just work on getting James Corden off the air.
Yeah.
Sorry to the James Corden fans.
And then we've got Patrick Ewing, who he's actually the first thing, his IMDb actually leads in 1990 with The Exorcist 3, where he played the Angel of Death.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And it's literally the only acting credit as a character that he's done.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's bizarre.
Yeah. And then we've got Muggsy Buggs, who is playing himself. He also played himself in Joanna Man and the Whoopi Goldberg film Eddie.
I remember Eddie.
Yeah. And then we also had Larry Johnson in this film, and he was also in Eddie. Click on a lot of the basketball players that are in this film were also in Eddie.
Was that okay? So was the plot of that Whoopi Goldberg was a basketball coach?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Basketball coach or general manager.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
And then we've got Sean Bradley, who played himself. He's the very long-legged, tall, lanky white guy.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And obviously he's played himself in other things. And the only acting credit that he has playing a character is in a film called The Singles Ward, where he played a mechanic.
Okay.
I'm like, this is weird.
When is that from in career-wise?
This is in the 2000s.
Oh, okay. So he had been a basketball player. He had made his money. He had moved on, and then he did that. Okay.
Yeah. So I looked that up because I'm like, why was he doing this? And it's like a little Mormon film, because it's about a divorced Mormon stand-up comedian moves after divorce to loosen the ties to the church and its singles ward. And so Sean Bradley, he mentions it in the film that he could go and be a missionary again.
Yeah.
He's actually Mormon. So that's I think how he came to do that movie.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I follow the logic.
Yeah.
The Mormon logic.
And then only other real actors of note is we've got Tom Barry, who played James Jordan, his father, at the beginning, where he played Agent Bilkins in the first two Fast and Furious films.
Oh. I've seen none of those.
Oh. They're fun.
Oh.
And then we've got Teresa Randall, who played his wife, Juanita. And she is in all three Bad Boys films.
Yeah. She's Martin Lawrence's wife in those movies, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Yep, that's it.
She's in a bunch of 90s stuff too. I remember she was in she was in Girl 6 and
she's in Spawn.
Oh yeah, she's in Spawn. Spawn,
Yeah.
what a bad movie.
She's in Seinfeld.
Yeah, everybody that was acting in the 90s was in Seinfeld, no?
I was about to say a lot of the actual actors in this film I saw were in at least an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of actors from this film who are in episodes of a show, we can go on into the Trek connections.
Cool.
Or, as Muggsy Buggs would say,
Look like something from Star Trek.
Yeah.
yeah. They actually reference Star Trek in the movie
They
this
do.
time. So first up, these are all people. I've got like these in two phases.
Yeah, I
And the
have
first
phase A up.
Yeah. And the first phase are people who were either visible on screen or provided voices. And so we've got our guy Frank Welker, who we talk about a lot on this show.
The legendary Frank Welker.
He was the voice of Michael's dog.
I noticed
name
that
is-
in the credits.
Charles Barkley is the name of his dog.
And that is one of my favorite jokes in the movie.
Yeah. And the weird thing is Frank Welker, this is the photo for Frank Welker on Memory Alpha.
I love
the Star Trek wiki.
I love that.
So he provided the screams of young Spock in Star Trek 3, and he also played the cytoplasmic life form in Voyager, which is what we're seeing here.
The cytoplasmic life form. So good.
And then moving next, right top, is we've got Steve Kahila, who played Monstar Blanco. He did the voice for Monstar Blanco, the tall blue one.
Oh, okay.
And he was this guy Sutak in Voyager.
Still blue.
Yes. And then we've got, I don't even know why this is, but like we've got Michael. No, that's not Michael Rathbone. No, we've got Greg Bronson, who played a random basketball fan. And then we see him as a random Romulan and Nemesis there in the very back.
Yeah, is he this out of focus background Romulan right here? Okay.
Exactly.
That's an amazing. So is that picture on Memory Alpha, or did you find?
Oh no,
Okay.
I don't have those research. It's Memory Alpha has them tagged in there. Otherwise,
Oh, bless the Star Trek nerds, the Trekkers. Sorry, nerds.
yeah. And then we've got Michael Rothar, who was a reporter in this film, and he played Garvin in The Next Generation in an episode called Thine Own Self,
Great.
in which Data arrives on a planet and he loses his memory, and then he gives everybody radiation poisoning on accident. So you see him in this picture. He's about to dig into some tasty radioactive material.
In a space hat. He's wearing a space hat.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So those are all phase one. And then for phase two are all the stunt performers. So I feel like a lot of these people were in green suits playing basketball with Michael Jordan at one point.
Yeah, which we'll talk about that presently also.
Yeah. And so we've got Laura Albert, who she worked on. The first person is not even pictured. Laura Albert, she worked on an episode of The Next Generation. She's not pictured here. And then Carol Daniels played Zora in the original series episode, The Savage Curtain.
Ooh, original series.
I was so excited because they're finally got some original series connections.
Yeah. It's about
And
time.
then, yeah. And then it doesn't stop there, because then we've got Bob Brailer, who is the stunt coordinator for the film, and he worked on several episodes of the original series, Deep Space Nine, and the motion picture.
Nice.
And so he played a bunch of red shirts and the other guy in the blue shirt.
Nice. It's a good history.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Hubie Kearns Jr., who's the bottom left, and he worked on The Wrath of Khan, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and his father, Hubie Kearns Sr., worked on the original series.
Nice.
And then we've got Jay Caputo, who worked on Generations and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And there he is doing a backflip while catching a baseball.
Wow. So that's apparently a thing that's achievable by humans. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there are all
Look
the
like
Star
some
Trek
Star
connections.
Nice.
Or as Muggsy Buggs would say,
Look like something from Star Trek.
I promise you, every time you do that, I am hitting that button.
okay.
Travis can't hear. I don't have the audio set up correctly for Travis to actually hear what I play back off of my computer for this broadcast. So he has to trust me that I'm pressing that audio clip when the appropriate time comes.
You could play it all the time and
Look like
just
something
play
from
it
Star
randomly
Trek.
throughout the episode.
Look like something from Star Trek.
Oh, I will.
All right.
You can't give me a button and expect me not to press it.
And so yeah, that's all with the cast. So
cool.
we'll get to actually talk more about the film.
Yeah. So I guess I'll talk about some personnel before getting into the background of the movie, because we do have some like behind the scenes shots that I think are nice, and we'll talk about that. But just while we're talking about personnel, this movie was ostensibly directed by a man named Joe Pytka.
Mm-hmm.
I've read conflicting information about how much he contributed to certain things. I think he definitely oversaw the film as like making sure it came together and was a thing, making sure all the elements were there. I know he's from music video and commercial world. He only has one other feature credit, which is a movie called Let It Ride from 1989 with Richard Dreyfuss and Terry Garr. But like on his resume, I recognized like so many of the commercials and music videos and stuff he did in the 90s. Like, do you remember the Britney Pepsi campaign that was like huge from the late 90s?
Yep.
That was him. He directed the Britney Blue Pepsi campaign and all this
Wow.
stuff. But I read some information that suggested that for a lot of stuff, it came down to Ivan Reitman and his contributions to the movie more so than Pytka's, because Reitman was very involved with seemingly on a micro level, even with like approving animation, and I have a little bit of info about that. But like, I don't know if it's like a Tobe Hooper, Steven Spielberg Poltergeist situation. I don't know if it's that extreme.
Got that in the notes, that it seems like Ivan Reitman was like the ghost director on this film.
Which is like, I think that's where the movie probably gets its charm. Like, Reitman is not the kind of filmmaker that makes a pizzazzy looking kind of movie. Like, Reitman's movies are pretty straight ahead visually, and this movie is not. This movie has a pretty wild visual style, and I think that's from Pytka. But I think the glue that holds the movie together is probably a lot coming from Reitman.
Yeah.
Which, just to be clear, if anybody's unfamiliar with Ivan Reitman, he produced and directed the Ghostbusters movies, Meatballs, Stripes, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, etc.
Junior.
Evolution.
Yep.
Yeah, so Junior.
I'm actually surprised that Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't have a cameo playing himself in this film.
I kind of am too, especially considering one of Bill Murray's better jokes in the movie when he shows up again at the end at the basketball game. He's like, "Bill, what are you doing here?" Producer's a friend of mine. A Teamster dropped me off. I love that joke. And I read apparently Bill was originally only supposed to be in the golf scene, but then like was having a good time and is like, "I want to see what this green screen thing you're doing's about," and then asked to be inserted into the ball game.
Wow. That's fun.
So we got two sets of writers credited with the screenplay on this movie, but I have to wonder how much of the script is really these guys, how much of it is Reitman writing scenes on the day, and how much of it came from the real Warner Brothers Looney Tunes team. Because the Looney Tunes jokes are very classic Looney Tunes jokes. I think the Looney Tunes are treated very well in this movie in terms of like just respecting those characters and keeping them true to, even though I think Mel Blanc disagreed with that. Mel Blanc didn't like the movie, or was it Chuck Jones that didn't like the movie?
It's Chuck Jones that I read.
Okay, yeah. My
with
mistake.
the characterization.
Yeah, I Chuck Jones knows better than me, but for me as a kid who did grow up watching Looney Tunes and who watched this movie, these felt like the same characters. But
yeah, I had a teacher growing up who was super into Looney Tunes, And when Space Jam came out, we're like, oh my gosh, are you like so excited about like Space Jam? And he's like, it's not. They're not really like, those aren't the same characters to me. And I'm like, oh, so it is, yeah, interesting that like we have this other lens on it.
Yeah.
As opposed to these other people.
That's really interesting. I mean, because I really
did. I was gonna say it's probably like the way that we view like the new Star Wars films.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
as opposed to like the general public. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's true. It all that stuff is super generational, and there's a very real thing where like the thing that you know, the first thing that you know is the thing and is the definition in your head, and if that changes, it's wrong. I run into a lot of that with a lot of music I listen to, where I'll grow very attached to a certain version of a song, and then if I see that same band play that song live, and it sounds great because it sounds like a well-rehearsed live band, but it doesn't sound like the album version that I've loved for 30 years, that I'm still like, like I'm still somehow disappointed, even though I have nothing to be disappointed about. It's a very human kind of response. But so the people credited with writing the screenplay on this movie, it seems to be two writing teams. Leo Benvenucci and Steve Rudnick, who also have credits on the first two Santa Claus movies, Kicking and Screaming, and various TV shows. The other writing team, Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod, have credits on Trading Places, Brewster's Millions, Twins, My Stepmother is an Alien, and Kindergarten Cop. Not so
that
much.
All sounds right.
Yeah, not so much a lot of stuff, and a lot of these you'll find are like Reitman regulars. I kind of discovered as I was looking up these personnel people, and then apparently Harris had something to do with that Astro Boy movie from a few years ago, but not Weingrod. So it doesn't seem like they're working together anymore. The director of photography was the legendary Michael Chapman, who is now retired, but credits include Taxi Driver, The Last Waltz, Raging Bull, Personal Best, The Lost Boys, Scrooged, Ghostbusters 2, Quick Change. I guess Bill Murray liked him enough to steal him off of Ghostbusters 2 to do Quick Change, which if you've never seen Quick Change, it's really funny. Mm-hmm. So good. Gina Davis, Randy Quaid, Bill Murray, they rob a bank and then try to escape New York City. And New York City is just such a hellhole, they can't manage to get out. It's not like they're even being pursued. There's a lot of things happen. They can't get out. It's really funny. Chapman also shot Kindergarten Cop, Doc Hollywood, The Fugitive, Evolution, and David Duchovny's theatrical feature debut as a director, House of D. Chapman retired after shooting Bridge to Terabithia a handful of years back. I do want to note, because I don't know if we'll do a podcast about Scrooge, we might, but I have little known Scrooge trivia. I haven't found this information on the internet. I learned this trivia from a person that worked on the movie that did a Q&A before a screening of Scrooge I saw a couple years ago. The very beginning of the movie was not shot by Michael Chapman. It was shot by the legendary DP Conrad Hall. And that's when the lighting is actually just darker in the movie. And the studio got the dailies back and thought the footage was literally too dark and demanded that Conrad Hall be fired. And then Michael Chapman was brought in and shot the rest of the movie. But about the first 15 minutes of Scrooge was shot by Conrad Hall. So there's that. Composer was James Newton Howard. There's so many movies I could list for James Newton Howard. But I picked out to mention Flatliners, My Girl, Junior, Outbreak, Waterworld, Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, all of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, the whole Dark Knight trilogy, Nolan's. He did both The Green Hornet and Green Lantern.
Son of the Green Superheroes.
And upcoming, he scored Jungle Cruise. You've heard James Newton Howard's music.
Oh yeah.
Marlene Stewart did the costumes in this movie. She started in music videos, interestingly enough, but notable features include The Doors, Terminator 2, JFK, Falling Down, True Lies, the X-Files movie, Tropic Thunder, Oblivion, and most recently Top Gun Maverick. I found that to be a very eclectic, and there's more that I'm not listing too. Like, it's a great resume. And then there's two animation directors credited as the principal animation directors on the movie, and those are Tony Cervone, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Bruce W. Smith. Tony also did work on a lot of, and this is like, again, heavily abbreviated, and he worked on these characters through multiple incarnations of series and stuff, but Duck Dodgers, Animaniacs, Latter-day Tom and Jerry, and a lot of years of Scooby-Doo, including directing the recent Scoob.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Bruce Smith worked on Rockadoodle, Bebe's Kids, The Page Master, a Goofy movie. He did character design on Seabear and Jamal, Quack Pack, Princess and the Frog, and Teen Titans Go. So, like, a wonderful group of people working on this movie. A lot of talent behind the camera. So like you mentioned, the movie was born out of a couple Nike ads from 1992 and 1993, which starred Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny, which were directed by Joe Pytka. And that immediately opened the gate to conversations about we should do this as a movie. It also went a good way to helping Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was very hesitant to quote-unquote modernize Bugs Bunny. And those two ads helped them open their minds to the idea of, like, kind of revitalizing the characters for a younger, new generation. And I guess the idea for the movie came out of a meeting on a plane between Ivan Reitman and Nike. And they first were going to start doing this, like, 1993. But then Michael Jordan went over to baseball, so they kind of just shut the movie down. They're like, oh, Michael's playing baseball now. We don't have a movie anymore. But when he came back to basketball, Warner Brothers was like, oh, can we do this thing? And Pytka was given the job with fairly short notice. And apparently...
It would have had to have been, because this was... Yeah, because he came back in like March or April of 95, and they shot it that summer.
Yeah, no, it was like full speed ahead. It was like a need to get this done kind of a thing. And apparently Pytka tried to get Spike Lee to help on the script, but Warner Brothers blocked that because they were mad about how he funded Malcolm X. And I don't know the further story on that, but that's interesting. That's a little interesting side note. Apparently, and like you said, it was, there's not many actors in the movie, and apparently the actors that they did cast, it was a little bit difficult to get them cast because a lot of actors were pretty hesitant about starring alongside cartoons and athletes, which is like an understandable thing. Like, what do you have to act against, you as an actor? You have people who aren't actors, and you have people who aren't there.
Yeah, who's going to give me less chemistry here?
Right, exactly. And Reitman was very insistent on the quality of the voice cast. And the voice cast is great. You didn't even really dive into those, but
No, I didn't. I mean, it's extensive.
It's huge.
But we've got some of our favorites there, like Billy West. We've got D. Bradley Baker. Hold on, let me pull it up. Bill Farmer, Bob Bergen, and Danny DeVito. I can't.
But I have something to say about that. I mean, but also like Kath Soucie and Maurice LaMarche and just
interesting. All the Nerd Luck versions of the aliens.
Yes,
I noticed Catherine Reitman was the purple one.
Yep. And Colleen Wainwright, that name is very familiar. I wonder why. But she did a voice. I guess not a lot of stuff, so maybe that name isn't actually familiar to me. Anyway, I might just be have Rupert Wainwright on the brain still from our Blank Check episode. That's huge. Thank you to everyone who watched the Blank Check episode.
If you're watching this because you liked our coverage of Blank Check, tell us why.
Cheers. Yeah, tell us why that episode has 5,000 views that seem organic on Facebook. We can't figure it out.
It's up to 7,000 now.
It's up to 7,000? Or is it embedded in like a news article somewhere that we're not seeing? If anyone listening or watching this can fill us in as to why thousands of people have listened to us talk about Blank Check. We would love to know and do more
Should
of that.
we start a Blank Check podcast?
Oh, please, no. We can if that's what the viewership demands. Sure, I'll sell out. But so Reitman was insistent on the quality of the voice cast, and ultimately the only like celebrity, like the only like stunt casting in that was Danny DeVito as Swackhammer. Though Jack Palance was apparently an early choice for that role.
Oh.
But I also read, and by the way, I pulled like all this information from the Wikipedia article about Space Jam, and there's a lot of interesting information that I just did not even bother to try to condense into here, like a lot of very technical stuff about the animation that's actually really interesting, but gets it into more nitty gritty than I think we really do here. But so apparently Swackhammer was intended to be a live action character up until almost the very end of development on this movie. So at certain points in development,
that kind of makes sense, because from the get-go, I'm like, oh, the animation is not as good as I remembered, specifically on Swackhammer.
Interesting.
He did not look as well-rounded and developed. Like they didn't finish him in time the way they did the rest of the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I can see that. I liked a lot of the quality of the animation in the movie. But there was a lot of stuff going on. So all the animation was supposed to be handled in-house at WB. But the project grew way too large, and they had to contract out work to other studios. And it was difficult to achieve animation that actually met with Reitman's approval. He would often send stuff back to be redrawn or altered. More than 700 workers across 18 studios in London, Canada, California, and Ohio worked on the movie in the animation department. Huge job compositing everything on a scale that I think was even more intense than Roger Rabbit, and certainly more digitally dependent than Roger Rabbit.
Including a bulldog for some reason.
And
there's shots of that bulldog that I'm like, they composited that. Why?
Yeah, it looked very weird in certain points. And a very early movie to blend CG and cell animation. We had not seen almost any of that theatrically at that point. And it was one of the first projects to be shot in a virtual studio.
Yes. Let's show that off.
Yeah, let's show off. Thank you for putting this image together, because I hadn't seen any of this stuff. This is great. I love this. And there's our friend George down there, just getting ideas.
I thought, George might have stopped by the set, and he was like looking around at all the green screen, and he's like, "Oh, you guys,
we can do this.
Got
now?
a good idea going here."
So yeah, like as you can see, it's Michael Jordan in a 360-degree green screen stage with motion trackers, playing alongside NBA players and also apparently trained comedians from the Groundlings, all wearing green suits.
Oh, I see. I was trying to find out who these people were, so that's thank you for that.
So it's basketball players and Groundlings. The Groundlings, I would assume, for the joke parts in the Looney Tunes, and basketball players for him to actually do something against. And yeah, so I found that very interesting. And as you have it, I'm going to go to this other image you have here. One of Michael Jordan's things. I don't think this was part of his contract rider, but I think it was just something Warner Brothers did. Is that correct, to your understanding?
Because I can't figure out if that was a writer or if it was just something they did to appease him. But they built what they called the Jordan Dome.
The Jordan Dome.
And it was a place for him to work out and play basketball as soon as he was done shooting every day. And they do go into that in the Last Dance documentary, how he would go and work out, and then all these various players from the NBA would come and play basketball with him for like hours and hours on end after a day's shooting. And he would just like go full steam from 4 or 5 a.m. until like 10 or 11.
Which is that's baffling. I mean, a day on a movie set, even for an actor, is can be, especially like for what he's doing mostly, which is all physical stuff. It's very, very intense, and there's a lot asked of you. And for him to just be like, okay, now I'm just gonna go be physically active for 4 more hours when I have the option of going home, a mindset I will almost assuredly never understand. Alex Brunel, consummate slacker. But yeah, that's all super interesting. And apparently the motion tracking software that they used was developed and was proprietary for Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. And that was what was used to help composite the live action elements with the kind of dynamic camera movement that Joe Pitko is doing. Because I mean, like, there was a lot of crane stuff, you know, like a lot of like camera starts high, goes way down low, comes around. There's a lot of very dynamic camera work in the movie. There's some handheld camera work that animated stuff is integrated into, and just like actually like really impressive on that level that it even hangs together at all. Like you said, like there are parts where you can see the dog is composite and you're like, why? But like there's a lot of points where like the compositing actually looks very good. And yeah, and just another little bit of info just to shine some light on how often or like how much minutia was going on. There were apparently 94 revisions to the stadium visually. In terms of like the background look of the stadium, 94 revisions of that before arriving at the version that is on screen. Wow. In this very accelerated production period. So it doesn't seem like anybody had an easy job of making this movie. Yeah. And that's kind of all I got. I mean, like, again, there's a lot of really good information on Wikipedia. Check it out. Yeah, there's this the Neil Boyle, supervising animator, quote from him. One thing I heard was that Ivan Reitman, when they were thinking about going ahead with this movie, had phoned up Robert Zemeckis about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and asked, do you have any advice on what we should do to make a movie like this? And he said, don't do it. It nearly killed me. So, yeah, I don't think this movie was fun to make for probably anyone involved except maybe Bill Murray.
Yeah.
I think Bill probably had a good
Bill
time.
Murray had a good time on it. Maybe Wayne Knight did. I don't know.
Probably Wayne Knight did. I think Wayne Knight always struck me as the kind of guy who was just like psyched to be working. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one of the things that I pulled was that Bill Murray decided to do this because he had the opportunity to work on Who Framed Roger Rabbit and passed it up.
Oh, yeah.
And he regretted it, so that's why he jumped on board this.
And fair consolation, because honestly, if Bill Murray wasn't present in this movie and we didn't have that glue of like the occasional like deeply really funny stuff going on that he does, like that very particular Bill Murray flavor, I do think the movie would be, even though he's not in it that much, I do think the movie would be far worse off without his presence.
No, for sure. To just like shed some light there. Because yeah, he's only really in 2 sequences.
Yeah, he's in 2 scenes.
But it's just so good. Like the point of this movie I've always thought was funniest is when Michael gets sucked down into the golf hole and they're just standing there like, what did we just witness? He's lost his shoe, and you know Bill Murray looks over at Wayne Knight, who's like just taking a picture, and he's like, what kind of a camera is that? Put that down, don't point it at me.
Like snatches it out of his hands and throws it off frame. That was so funny. I laughed so hard. And I mean, we have to, and you know what, so I didn't listen to any of the music from the film outside of the context of the film. But this is the first, you know, I don't listen to the Space Jam soundtrack if I'm not watching Space Jam, basically.
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
I've got some notes on the Space Jam soundtrack.
Great. Please go into them.
This soundtrack, this movie and this soundtrack was like very instrumental, I would say, in my love for film soundtracks.
Okay, cool.
I was, definitely like a fan of, certain like John Williams scores and everything. But this is like the first like actual soundtrack I got into, and was actually the first CD I bought.
Interesting.
So I'm very aware of like all the songs on this soundtrack.
So answer me a question really quick then, because when the Space Jam song plays, which is I think just 2 times in the movie, like it plays over the opening title sequence and then it plays later on. That's not really a pop song. It's kind of, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, and it's just like how I heard it in the movie. But it seemed like it's just sections of music kind of all pasted together into a thing that has this Space Jam chorus. And there's like a chunk of Whoomp There It Is in there. And like there's some other stuff floating around. But to me, it seemed very analogous to the movie itself, where it's just like, well, if we put all these elements into a thing that's this long with a drum beat, that's the single, right? And that's like the thing with the movie. It's like, well, if we take Michael Jordan and we take Looney Tunes and they have to play basketball together, that's a movie, right?
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah, that was my thought. But is it more of a song when you're listening to it by itself, or is it like that?
No, when you listen to the opening credits, that's the song.
Okay, great. So that's
what's
my
on the soundtrack.
My assessment is correct. It's not a different edit in the movie. Okay.
Yeah, there is like there are verses.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, but other than that, like you're hearing it.
What else you want to say about the soundtrack? There's a lot to say.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's the "Fly Like an Eagle" that Seal covers.
Yep. Which must have been my initial exposure to that song.
This is the first exposure I had to it before hearing the Eagles version. And there's of course "I Believe I Can Fly"
by noted urinator R. Kelly.
Yeah. Sarah had actually never seen this film.
Oh.
So she was very baffled by it. She's like, what on earth is this?
I love that. Oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah. I wish I could have gotten like a soundbite of her just talking about like, why are you into this? What's But she like took note of like the R. Kelly song right away, and then afterwards she's like, is that song from this movie? I'm like, oh yeah, like I only know that song because of this movie.
Yeah. I think it is from this movie, is it not?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Was it recorded? Yeah, I'm looking at the cover of the single right now. Actually, I'm gonna I now must throw this up into a graphic because the cover of this single is just too good. But continue talking, and then I'll interrupt our visuals with the picture of the R. Kelly single.
Okay. And then one of my favorite songs on this soundtrack, and it plays against the montage of all the basketball players like having this crisis about their identities and the fact that they do not have their talent anymore, and it's called Basketball Jones. It is a cover of a Cheech and Chong song.
I noticed Cheech and Chong in the credits as songwriters, and I was baffled by that.
Yeah, and then on the soundtrack version of this song, it's Barry White and Chris Rock.
That's what it was. I was like, why are Chris Rock and Barry White singing a Cheech and Chong composition?
Yep. And it's a good song. I like both versions. At the end of the soundtrack version song, Chris Rock starts shouting out all the different Looney Tunes.
I did notice that like also it said in the credits like Chris Rock appears courtesy of DreamWorks Records, and I was just like, from the time when people were still beholden to those kinds of contracts, and like I guess Chris Rock did have an album like in 1999. I remember No Sex in the Champagne Room being a single. I'm gonna here's the cover to the R. Kelly single of I Believe I Can Fly. Travis, if you have a preview up, you'll probably see this graphic in a minute. But it's just like Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan, but parted in the middle, and there's R. Kelly looming behind them. And so that's a single from Space Jam. 100.
About to pee on somebody.
About to. Somebody in the audience. Somebody in the Space Jam audience. It was originally from the Space Jam soundtrack and later included on his 1998 album. R.
Wow. And then we got the other one. What they ended the soundtrack with is a song called "Buggin'," in which it's Bugs Bunny rapping.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no! That was
Stay tuned to the podcast. I'm going to include the whole thing.
Bonus track at the end of the podcast is the Bugs Bunny rap.
Yep. You see that James Newton Howard has a writing credit on it.
I mean, that makes sense. That was a thing. Once hip hop went even a little bit mainstream, there was everything had a rap. Rodney Dangerfield did a rap album.
Yeah.
There was a McGruff the Crime Dog cassette about staying safe and not doing drugs and stuff, and 3 of those were raps. And the guy who played McGruff did the vocals on the whole album. It's this very weird piece of audio history.
And then the amazing Joe Pesci rap.
I forgot about the Joe Pesci rap.
Oh, never forget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of weird raps from that time. I have one of the things I like collecting in my record collection is 12-inch hip hop singles from the 80s. There's a lot of stuff that's only on these singles. There's versions that are only on these singles, and you can usually get them for pretty cheap, and I like just buying a pile of them and seeing what they are. I bought a 12-inch single spun off of the comic strip Doonesbury that was a character, but it was Ronald Reagan doing a rap. I also have a Wendy's rap. I have a rap called Where's the Beef? That was a Wendy's promotion.
Wow.
The group was called Tenderloins, spelled with a Z. So I'm glad that Bugs Bunny is in the long history of that.
Yeah.
What else about this movie? I'm looking at my notes from as I watched it, and I feel like a lot of them are worthless, because I do think the movie's really funny. I really like. Oh, here's one thing I actually did want to highlight and discuss as a bigger concept, because the movie doesn't allow it to be a concept, but because it goes by it so fast, you don't have time to process what happened in a real way. And this is another thing that goes to this is a bubble movie, can't ask that much of it, but. So there's the scene where Michael Jordan comes home to his kids. They're watching news on TV about him being bad at baseball. He changes the channel. It lands on Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Mm-hmm. He leaves the room. Kids are watching the cartoon. Porky Pig enters the cartoon and has this line that I love. Emergency cartoon union meeting. We all got to go right now. Then they go to a union hall, which turns out, if you look, it's actually the animators union number is their union hall that they go to in the movie. And then so Porky takes Coyote and Roadrunner out of the cartoon to go to this meeting, and the frame just freezes. It's just like an anvil on an empty road, and the kids are like, what's going on? And then the scene cuts away. Now, what that implies is that Looney Tunes are live broadcasts happening from somewhere deep in the Earth's core. And that anytime we are watching Looney Tunes, we are watching performers do that in real time.
Yeah. That's
what that implies, right? There's no other way to interpret that?
No, that's definitely what's going on. Also, are they performing, or are their lives just being captured?
Right.
Because
that's a great question.
Wile E. Coyote, I think, definitely wants that Roadrunner, because we see that several times Sylvester is very much about I got to get that bird.
Yeah.
He's not playing. He really wants to eat Tweety.
He really does want to eat Tweety. Yeah. So that moment I thought was that's one of those things, movies do that from time to time. They'll do a thing, and the writers, and again, this is Space Jam. We don't have to dissect our cartoons living broadcasts. We don't like that's just a fun like a weird thought experiment that's kind of fun to discuss. But there are other movies that do stuff where like they'll leave a thing on the table and then leave you to just like be like, wait a second. So if X plus Y equals Z, but Z is related to R, and you just make all these connections. And a movie that is like that is the movie Collateral Beauty with Will Smith, in which the concepts of love, death, and time wind up taking $20,000 human dollars each as payment for services. And may or may not be working with a private investigator in some capacity. There's a lot. I've done a different podcast about Collateral Beauty. I've podcasted Collateral Beauty already. If you want to look up the podcast, watch it to shreds, you can listen to me and my friends doing commentary on Collateral Beauty, because that's a weird movie. But, like, yeah, I like when movies do that, when there's, like, this weird hanging chad that actually means a lot to what the movie is trying to do, like, what is happening, that just go brushed right past.
It's like when you start thinking about like the concept of the world of Toy Story and what that means.
Yes, it's terrifying. Or what was like Lego's life? Like, how do you reconcile the idea that like your flesh is the same material as your bed and your houses, and like what does that mean? Existentially, what does that mean? Yeah. I did make the note that I feel like even if the children that had this reaction couldn't put it into words, I feel like when Lola Bunny came on screen, that there were probably some kids in the audience who had a version of the thought, oh, I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Oh, yes. Oh, that clip just played.
That's a community reference, y'all.
Watching it this time, like, oh, why is Bunny so sexualized?
And I do like how she doesn't let any man catcall her, and she always takes the power back in this scenario. But it is a sexy bunny. There is a sexy bunny in this movie, so yeah, there is that aspect.
Watching it as a kid, I instantly was like excited because I'm like, oh, they finally like they didn't give us like a grown-up Babs Bunny, but the same way, like if you're into Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster and Babs, like Buster was like a counterpoint to like Bugs to a degree,
right? And
there was no like adult version of Babs, and I'm like, oh, this is like the Babs Bunny,
right? I think I thought that too at the time. That like I was looking for the Babs analog in the movie because I was a Tiny Toons devotee as a child.
Yeah.
I did make the note, this is the second movie in a row we've watched where characters burrow underground close to the surface.
Yes, yeah. Sarah remarked, she's like, it's like the same effect as Nora.
Yeah, when Bugs and Daffy are going to Michael's house to get his shorts and shoes. There's another friggin' bit in here. The scene with the psychic I thought was really funny, where she gets everything right and the basketball players just don't believe her.
Yes. The whole the sequence where they're grappling with all that stuff, I've found to be, I mean, they play it as comical, but
it's very sad.
It's sad. There's a funny line that the one psychiatrist has to Patrick Ewing where he asks, are there any other areas besides basketball that you find yourself unable to perform? Which went over my head as a kid.
Wasn't correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when Basketball Jones plays in the movie, and I think she asks that question and then Barry White goes, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And then he says no, and then Barry White again, yeah. I did really like that. That was really, really funny.
Yeah. There's also a weird shot where they're all walking down the hallway of the hospital, and they're trying to get all the characters in there. And Muggsy, who is the short guy, he's got this weird walk where I'm like, did they have him on some kind of a track and he had to pretend to walk? Because it doesn't look like he's walking at all.
Oh,
And I didn't
interesting.
know if I was trying to like fit him into the frame with everybody else.
Look like some Star Trek.
But yeah, that whole aspect right now especially is weird because they're all freaking out. The NBA is freaking out because no players don't want to play because they're like, I'm gonna catch something out there.
Right.
And they cancel the NBA season.
They canceled
and
the
everybody
NBA
puts
because
on masks. And I'm
five
like,
because 5 players got sick.
Yeah.
5. And yeah. And now basketball is seemingly the only thing doing it right now, but I mean, like, I'm just like, wow, I wish we as a nation would have had that response to a real threat of the disease.
yeah. It was just very oddly timed to be like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is a weird thing.
That one part of the movie ages very peculiarly. Oh, this was a plot thing I found interesting. Bugs Bunny uses the same manipulation twice in the movie. The first is, they can't play basketball, so I'm going to challenge them to a basketball game, and I'm just going to write in this rule book, must allow an opportunity to defend ourselves. Just because he writes it, then it is the way. He does the same thing when he like just scribbles Michael's secret stuff on a water bottle and says, "Look, this is the secret formula." Bugs is a manipulative son of a bitch.
Yeah. Nobody questions it.
No. Did I have another thing about Lola Bunny? I don't think so. Thought Tweety going all kung fu on the Monstars was really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I remember this. They used to sell Michael's secret stuff.
Did they?
It was like a candy powdered stuff.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess anything that could be a product must be a product, especially at this time.
Yeah. In the movie, it's water, but let's
Right.
turn it into
Sugar.
some sugary candy to give to kids.
Just make it sugar. Why not? Yeah, I mean, and there's the Pulp Fiction gag in the movie, which I remember was heavily part of the advertising. And now as an adult, I'm like, were they putting in the advertising for adults? Like, putting that in the ads for adults? Because it's not like the 7-year-olds are, like, being like, oh, that's funny. I get that joke.
Yeah, no, that's something I did not get as a kid either, obviously. But it's weird because, I don't know, thinking about like when I saw that gag, thinking it was funny, and I knew that it was a reference to like something pop culturally. Like, even though I hadn't seen the film, I knew like it was something. It's like I used to watch Muppet Babies.
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of prior to me being into Star Wars. I used to watch
Sure.
Muppet Babies before I was into Star Wars, and they would make Star Wars references, and like
Yeah.
every time they made a thing, I'm like, this is the thing. This is like a big thing that I know is important somehow, but I don't.
It's in the credits of the movie, or the show, actually. Like, the shot of the TIE fighter, them interacting with it, that's in the credits of every episode of Muppet Babies.
Yeah.
That's probably, yeah, you know what, now that you're mentioning it, that may have been, I mean, I know my mom showed me Star Wars, but I remember it much more consciously from Muppet Babies, and then connecting that dot later when I actively watched Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten about these other visual aids. We got to talk about this poster, man.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to give the context of this kind of thing before I flash up this image?
Yeah, for this poster from Ghana, where there are several posters that came from this African country, in which, due to some rights issues, they could not actually acquire actual movie posters for the films, and so they were hand painted by artists who sometimes did not have any pictures or anything for reference.
Right.
They were just given kind of synopsises.
Right.
And they had to kind of like make a poster based off of what they thought that would look like.
And there's a lot, like, you can go online, just Google like Ghana movie posters, and you can find a lot of them. And there's a lot of like really beautiful insane looking stuff. But this is the one for Space Jam, which includes Potato Michael and some kind of animal. Michael has a gun. I think they're supposed to be jumping, but it really just looks like they have no legs. I am unsure what the amorphous brown shape is on the right side.
It looks like a coat, maybe.
A curtain, perhaps. Yeah, this is a great thing. Jam. I love it.
Like, I don't know. Did they know that Bugs? They knew it was a bunny, right? Like what?
Yeah. It's animal-esque. It does not look like a bunny. I want to show one more of these things. Is this one still programmed correctly? Yeah. Okay.
It looks like Patrick Stewart.
So there's this one. This is another Ghana poster. This is one of my favorites. Is this one for Twin Peaks, which friggin' Pinterest. I hate Pinterest. Okay, this one for Twin Peaks here, that has the man from another place, the little guy on horseback with a machine gun, Laura Flynn Boyle and Sherilyn Fenn, drawn from a cover of a magazine from a photo shoot they did. There's the log lady with the wrong color hair, except her log is a demon or something. And if you look, it says Twin Peak, and then the S is very small. So anyway, I'm going to cut back to the Space Jam poster, but I urge everyone to go and look up these posters from Ghana, from this period in their history, which is, they're all so great. They all have this style. It's such a weird thing, and it's amazing. I love it.
Also terrifying.
It's also terrifying. That is for sure true. And there's another relic of Space Jam that lingers on the internet still to this day.
Yes. Yeah. Space Jam, the official movie website, is still up and running and has not been touched for almost a quarter of a century.
Yeah, and it's not like this is new information. As if you Google Space Jam website, the first thing that comes up is the Space Jam website, which is, to be clear, spacejam.com. Yep. But if you scroll down from that, you'll see an article from 2010 talking about how the same website's still online, another one from 2015 talking about the same thing, another one from 2016 talking about the same thing. So it is very much real internet history, still alive. Oh boy, my webcam went out.
Oh no.
Ooh, what's going on here? Why is that happening? Well, you can talk for a minute, Travis. We can look at the Space Jam website. Oh, here, I think I'm back. That was weird.
So everybody enjoy 1996.
Yeah, so some parts of the 1996 internet are still alive. The internet that I knew and grew up with, and would go to the library and abuse. It's possible it's even likely I visited the Space Jam website.
I remember doing so
during the day.
And I did click around it again today, and I'm like, wow, and all the links are still working. The video links do not work anymore because we do not use those kind of files.
Yeah. I tried to open JPEGs off of a CD-ROM from 1996 a couple weeks ago. Can't do it. Can't get anything to open them up. It's really annoying. I even tried mounting virtual Windows 95 and 98 machines, and couldn't get them. I was very frustrated. Still am frustrated, because I know I opened those on a much older computer system, some Windows 98 system I used to have, and I can't anymore. So yeah, I wouldn't expect those video files to play anymore. But spacejam.com is still there, unlike GeoCities and the original Simpsons website and stuff.
Yeah,
this one still remains.
Oh man, other things in this movie. There's like some shots at Disney. Like there's when Bugs and Daffy have gotten Michael shorts and they're about to go back, and Wayne Knight overhears them. Daffy talks about like, oh, how about naming a team the Ducks? And then Bugs goes, what kind of a Mickey Mouse organization would call their team the Ducks?
It's a good gag.
Yeah, it was a reference because the Mighty Ducks, and the Anaheim Ducks were, founded by Disney. So,
Yep.
And then this was really not something that was happening at the time to the degree that it is now, but I thought it was very interesting that the whole premise of the movie is a theme park, and a theme park with a guy who's like, I need to acquire more properties to make attractions for my park.
Yeah.
Which wasn't happening to the degree in the 90s that it like is now that Disney's like, let's buy this and make a theme park out of it. Let's buy this and make an attraction out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. It's a prescient joke. I'm looking through my notes. There's another couple of things. One of the things I really liked about this movie is the bad guys, the antagonists, the Monstars. Mm-hmm. They give their power back because they lost. The antagonists in this movie actually played fair. Like, that's a very uncommon thing for a movie, for the bad guys to be like, all right, it was a game, we lost. We'll hold up our end of the deal. When do bad guys ever do that in movies? Never. They're just nice to see. Or in real life. Or in real life, yeah. I mean...
see how that ages.
Jesus.
Okay, and then the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey is apparently in the opening of this film.
Is it?
When you're going to Moron Mountain, yeah.
Like they pass by it.
Mm-hmm. The Schlesinger gym is where they're doing all their practicing. That's a reference to Leon Schlesinger, who is a producer of like all the early Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies animations.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I've got like, it's kind of like all I have right now.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've got some quotes where they're talking about all the equipment they have, and Elmer Fudd opens up a locker and he's like, we've got balls. And then Michael goes, you sure do. This place is a mess. Again, something else that went over my head as a kid.
Yeah. You got more quotes? Go with the quotes. I have a different thing, but go with the quotes.
Also, when Michael has the ball with all their talent in it and he brings it back to him, when they're all just like hanging out in a gymnasium.
Yeah.
He like comes in and he's just like asking them all, and he's begging them like, just touch it. And I was like, wow, if you like just listened to this and took it all out of context, this is terrible.
I hope that's what you're going to do in the podcast, that you take it out of context and just let us listen to Michael Jordan pleading with his fellow basketball players, just touch it.
Yeah, you want to play in the NBA game? If you want to play in the NBA again, just touch it.
That's awesome.
And when Swackhammer says, I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this picture as a kid, I was like, is it because he doesn't understand the difference between Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd?
Right. Which is the joke, but now it hits funnier. Just because you understand it.
Yeah, I guess. Because, like, I never understood. I'm like, does he not understand the difference between the two? Or when he sees Bill Murray, is he expecting Dan Aykroyd to show up as well?
Oh, man. I would have loved that. I always love when Aykroyd pops up. I love Aykroyd. I have an autographed bottle of Crystal Head vodka.
Nice.
Another note I had is that the end of the movie, the the Tunes bring back Michael to the baseball field via a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the spaceship looks great. It's CG,
Yeah.
but it finds this really great middle ground between like I could conceptually believe these people seeing that object, but it still looks very cartoony. I like that aesthetically very much.
Yeah.
I also
Sarah brought up that that spaceship, the design of it looks very similar to the Planet Express from Futurama.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It's a very similar shape. It had similar fins too, I think, right? On the end?
Yeah.
And I did want to ask a question about the title Space Jam. The jam does not happen in space. Does it?
It's from space.
It is from space. Yeah, I mean, that's what it has to be, right? That it's from space.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. Or they're taking up space and
Look like some Star
in the
Trek.
place that they're playing.
Yeah.
By that logic, any movie could be called Space Anything.
I was also kind
Space
of
Home Alone.
I would love Space Home Alone. I would love Space Home Alone. I was also like kind of unclear if the Space Jam event takes place in the Inglewood Coliseum or if it takes place in the Toon World of the Earth's core. As the movie seems to kind of imply both in a way that didn't make it totally clear to me. But again, these things don't matter. We're watching Space Jam. It's much like watching Howard the Duck in that way, actually. You kind of just got to give yourself up to what you've chosen to do. Your time. And the legacy is enduring of Space Jam.
Yes. Because get ready, next summer we're gonna get Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Look like something from Star Trek.
Yes.
With LeBron James coming back.
And we'll see what he can do. I feel like LeBron... I know nothing about LeBron. I am basing this on nothing. I feel like maybe he'll give a better performance than Michael gave in this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe LeBron would have taken like a few weeks of acting classes.
Yeah, like already I think LeBron has a leg up on Michael in terms of his acting ability because the first movie that Sarah and I saw together on a date was Trainwreck, in which he plays like a friend of Bill Hader. And he's actually really good in the film.
Oh, cool. I still have yet to see Trainwreck, which is an oversight on my part, but that's cool to know.
Yeah, and I think he's done a few other things, and he's
okay. Cool. Again,
he's
like
actually a funny, good actor.
Cool.
So,
like I said, I've only ever heard like really good things about him as a human being and as a basketball player. I have no information about LeBron James because I don't know basketball at all.
mm-hmm.
And so is the idea that do you know anything about this aside from LeBron?
No,
So we
don't know anything about the plot.
Do we know anything about the
can only
animation
assume
style?
that- no, not even that.
Interesting.
So we're gonna find out. Yeah, I can only assume that Jordan might make a cameo. There has to be some kind of a meeting between the two of them.
There has to be, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like
because
it's
Michael.
their opportunity to like have like Sly and Schwarzenegger in a film.
Right. And I mean, it's like an Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke situation, right? Like that would be Michael Jordan would be Obi-Wan in Space Jam: A New Legacy. And I guess they wrapped production on that. I guess that's in the can, and they are working on the animation and everything now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Well, everything old is new again. Still, because they've been threatening to make the new Space Jam for forever.
Mm-hmm. And it was always like rumored to be LeBron. So when it was like finally officially announced, it was like, all right, that's.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where like I think it's one of those situations maybe where like the idea of new Space Jam came up and weird. dropping a lot of frames all of a sudden. I hope the stream isn't totally frozen. Oh boy. Yep, nope, stream stopped. Stream is frozen.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Oh wait, we're back. We're coming back. Okay, we're back. We froze. We're back now. I don't know what happened. But like similar to the situation in like say Snakes on a Plane, where the famous line, "I've had it with these MF snakes on this MF plane," was not a line in the movie initially. That was done in reshoots once it became like an internet meme, and then like they're like, oh, we should just do this. Like, I feel like it was maybe like the idea of Space Jam 2 kind of came out, and then people were like, oh, is it LeBron? It should be LeBron. You think LeBron's going to be in this movie? And they're like, okay, we can't. And then like Warner Brothers probably understood, okay, we probably can't make this movie unless we get LeBron.
Yeah. Like, the only other thing they could do, or they could have done, was make it a different sport entirely. Mm-hmm. Like, they could have done it with football and Tom Brady.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the only other thing I could think of.
Yeah. I like that it's still a basketball game, though. Even though I don't care about any sports, I guess I still prefer it to be a basketball game if I'm going to watch another Space Jam movie. So, yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to say about Space Jam. I enjoyed watching it again. I'm sure I'll enjoy it whenever I decide to watch it again in the future.
I do have another quote that Wayne Knight gives.
Yes.
He says, "Come on, Michael, it's game time. Get your Hanes on, lace up your Nikes, grab your Wheaties and your Gatorade, and we'll pick up a Big Mac on the way to the ballpark." All of the items that he references are all ads that Michael Jordan did.
Yep. Michael Jordan made his money. Sure as hell did. Yeah, a lot of the one-liners in the movie are actually pretty damn funny.
Yeah. Like, the Michael Jordan as portrayed in this film is very, like, and there's like his image of the 90s as well. It's just like very clean, very just like nice guy. And then, according to, the Last Dance documentary, is not how he was in real life at all.
Oh, really?
He was, his approach to like inspiring his teammates to do better is very J.K. Simmons and Whiplash.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So he's like, when he's like giving them the pep talk, I'm like, no. I heard audio of him trying to get to rally guys, and it did not sound this polite.
It did not sound this polite. How long is isn't the Last Dance like 10 hours long or something?
It's 10 episodes.
Oh my gosh. All right, well.
It's also weird because you hear like Michael Jordan drop a lot of F-bombs, which is also a weird thing for me to hear.
Yeah, I'm my mind is boggling just thinking about hearing Michael Jordan curse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Guess this is a thing. What service is this on? What streaming service?
It's on Netflix.
Okay. Good. Okay. I have Netflix. Yeah.
So yeah, that's all we have on Space Jam.
And we just chatted about space, man. We jammed on this for an hour and 40 minutes, y'all. Thanks for joining us. This has been a hoot. Yeah. So next week. So again, to remind people of our upcoming schedule, we have 2 more episodes of movie podcast with Travis Fishburne and Alex Brunel. We have 2 more episodes of movie Madhouse for the current season, and then we'll be.
I'm considering making the Bill and Ted show a super show. I don't know.
Ooh, it's a super show. So yeah, next week we're gonna do a normal episode. Week after we will be kind of freeform reviewing Bill and Ted Face the Music, my most anticipated film of like the last 10 years, probably.
Yes.
And then after that, we'll be transitioning to talking about The Boys as it airs season 2 on Amazon, and we will be joined by our friend Dustin Meadows on that one. And do we have Ryan on that one or no?
No.
Okay.
He might show up for an episode or 2 if his schedule permits, but he will definitely be joining us for Mandalorian.
Okay, cool. And then, yeah, when Boys wraps up, that dovetails kind of nicely into when Mandalorian starts up. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's our overall plan.
The podcast runs for 8 episodes, 2 less than The Last Dance.
Well, you know, I mean, when you're telling a person's life story, 10 hours isn't like an insane amount of time. It's a life story.
Yeah. It's not even a life story. It's mostly the last season that he's playing. And then it's an interesting framing device. They used the last season because they had this they let this crew shoot film the entire season. So they had a ton of footage, which is I think why they did it this way.
That makes sense.
And then they like jump back in time a lot to catch you up.
Yeah, I've heard that it takes that narrative structure of like, this is now jump to before, while now kind of keeps progressing, then you come back into now, and that kind of cinematic narrative approach. But so next week is my choice.
Yes.
And we've gone off list. We have this list of movies that we're like, there's like 6 or 7 of these that we'll probably just never do, because we keep just having other ideas to do instead. And this is another one of those, which will be the 1990 Patrick Reed Johnson film Spaced Invaders. Notice that is Spaced, S-P-A-C-E-D, Invaders. Super Star Wars nerds that are perhaps listening to the show, if the name Patrick Reed Johnson sounds a little bit familiar to you, it is because he directed the film 52577.
I saw that. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And which I've still never been able to see that movie. I guess it finally screened in 2017. I never got a chance to see it.
I don't think a lot of people did. I remember there was a lot of talk about it like 12 years ago, and then it just disappeared.
So, and Patrick Reed Johnson has a little bit of an interesting history too. He has a visual effects background. He actually did miniature work on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And in terms of his directing output, there's like not a huge amount. We'll talk about what is there, but the first of which is Spaced Invaders, which is this movie about dumb Martians that crash in Illinois on the day that the local radio station happens to be rebroadcasting Orson Welles' 1938 War of the Worlds. So the town is going a little insane because the aliens are there, and it's a comedy, and it's doofy. And I'm excited to revisit this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, the title. When you were like questioning the Space Jam title, and then you bring up this title, I'm like, this movie could have been called Spaced Invaders.
Yeah, it could have been called Spaced Invaders, for sure. I think it's... Do I know somebody that worked on this movie? No, probably not. But yeah, we'll be talking about Space Invaders. That is available to stream on the service Hoopla, which I'm going to verify, but we think it's that thing,
the library card service.
The library card system, yeah. So if you have instantly borrow digital movies, music, ebooks, and more 24/7 with your library card at hoopla.com. And honestly, like, I really should get in on this because, you know, it's free. It's free. So watch Spaced Invaders for free and support your local library.
I was about to say, support your local library.
Very important. Support your local library. I mean, maybe a library isn't important to you in your daily life, but I assure you that is, you know, there are people who it's a very important resource for, and libraries are important repositories of information. So yeah, Spaced Invaders will be super fun. I'm very excited to rewatch that movie.
All right. So, until then, Alex, where can people find more of your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Alex Brunel for stuff. Recently, it's a lot of retweets about the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
What about you or this show?
The show you can find Who Watches Pod on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, where we stream every week. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, Spotify, soon to be Amazon Music. Yeah. And yeah, check us out, subscribe, leave reviews. We appreciate all of it.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. So until next time, as Muggsy Buggs would say,
You got to put that in because I got the outro music playing.
all right.
This is like something from Star Trek.
Yeah. Stay safe, stay sane, and stay smiling.